I am Dr. Varsha Sood, Associate Professor in Electronics and Communication Engineering Department of CEC CGC Landra. The topic for my lecture is Data Communications and Networks. So, the telecommunication, the term telecommunication means communication at a distance. The word data refers to the information presented in whatever form that is agreed upon by the transmitting and the receiving parties which are using that data, and data communication is the exchange of data or exchange of information between two devices via some medium, okay, via some form of transmission medium, which can be twisted pair, cable, optical fiber, or it can be wireless as well. So we have got 5 components of any data communications. The very first is the message, the data or the information which needs to be sent from the sender to the receiver. So sender and receiver, they become the third and the fourth component, second and the third component, and the fourth component is the transmission medium. Okay, and that medium, as I said before, it can be a twisted pair, coaxial cable, optical fiber, or it can be wireless with the means of radio waves as well. And the fifth and the most important component of data communication are the protocols. So protocols are the agreed upon rules between the sender and the receiver through which the communication shall be taking place between the sender and the receiver. Next comes the data flow. How the data or the information is flowing from the sender to the receiver. So it can be done as simplex, half duplex and full duplex. By simplex we mean that the flow of the data or flow of the information is only in one directional, means it's unidirectional. Means the sender, it can be a mainframe, it can be a server here, which is sending the data to a user or a monitor, will be taking in only one direction. The sender shall always be the sender, whereas the receiver shall always be the receiver. Next comes the half duplex, where we can go for bidirectional communication, means there shall be a role reversal of the two entities. Okay, at one point of time, station 1 shall be sending the data in time 1, and this shall be the direction of the data in time 1. In the other time, means at time 2, the other station may be the sender and the previous station will now be the receiver, and the flow of direction, flow of information shall be in the opposite direction, but at two different times. Two stations cannot communicate with each other simultaneously, and for this to take place, means the simultaneous communication among the two parties can be fulfilled by the help of full duplex data flow, which means at the same time or simultaneously both the two parties can transmit as well as receive information, just as the case in the telephony. As in telephone, both the two parties can talk as well as listen to each other. For half duplex, walkie-talkie is example, and in case of simplex, just as we communicate through the keyboard. The keyboard is always the sender or transmitter of the data, whereas the monitor is always the receiver. Now let's come to network. A network is a set of devices often referred to as nodes which are connected by transmission media or connecting or communication links. A node can be a computer, printer, or any other device which is capable of sending the data, and that data can be received by other nodes. So computer network, okay, the computer network is that network which is the interconnection of two or more computers. So here the nodes are typically the computers, hence the name computer networks. So it is done to enable the computers to communicate and share available resources. So applications can be sharing of resources. For example, we can connect many printers with the monitor, and hence the resources, the hardware resources can be shared among the various entities. Similarly, sharing of expensive software. The software is also a resource that can also be shared. Then communication, the connectivity itself is an application. So communication from one computer to another computer is an example. Exchange of data and information among various users which are connected via a network. Then sharing of information over geographically wide areas. Okay, when the nodes or these computers are located far apart from each other, then also with the help of computer networks, we can share the information amongst those computers or those nodes. Okay, the use of computer networks can be in business applications, just as we can sell, or online we can purchase. Home applications can be chatting, messaging or mailing applications. Mobile users, when the users are in mobile form, they are in movement. So we can we can go by the laptops, PDAs, mobiles, and then social networking, as we all are doing these days. Okay, so these are all facilitated by the computer networks. So the use of computer networks can be for sharing network, just as the case of data communication, sharing of hardware and the software resources, just as we saw in the previous slides, like sharing of the hardware resources when different fax machine, printers, etc. are connected to a system. That is the sharing of the hardware resources. Similarly, we can share the software resources as well, just as some documents on the web. So that web document is a software resource which can be shared amongst various users. Then centralized administration and support. For example, internet, where everyone can access the same administrative or support application from their PC. So that administration is centralized. Components of computer networks. Just as we saw in the case of general data communication components, there were 5 components. Here also we can enlist the components with respect to the computer networks. Okay, so here we shall be having 2 or more computers which can take the role of sender or receiver on time basis. Then links between the computers or the transmission media, how the computers are connected with each other. Then the network interfacing card or NIC on each computer. Each computer will have a physical address of its own which shall be facilitated by the network interface card. Then the switches, so as to give different paths or give different connectivity in the network. Then the operating system or the OS. So what are the benefits of any computer networks? So 2 broad classification of benefits are connectivity and resource sharing. So the network provides the users the sharing capability. The hardware as well as the software resources can be shared amongst each other. So it's cost effective in that way. Then connectivity, the very communication amongst the various users. Right? So coming to the sharing of resources. The types of resources can be hardware, it can be software. So hardware resources are, the network allows users to share many hardware devices such as printers, fax machines, modems, CD-ROMs or players, etc. Similarly, the software resources can be like the web documents, just as we saw in the previous slides. So sharing of software resources reduce the cost of software installation. It saves the space, just as we can save our documents on the cloud. So how much space, how much memory has been saved from the user's perspective. Other benefits of computer networks are increased speed. The speed is very high. Cost is reduced. Since we are sharing the resources, the cost is reduced. It is quite economical. It improves security. Since we have centralized administration, centralized support system, so the software can be managed in a centralized way. Applications can be varied, for example, electronic mail, messages, and likewise. Access can be flexible. Anyone can take the access of the media, and that can be supported by the centralized administration. Disadvantages. Everything has its own pros and cons. So the disadvantages of networks can be high cost of installation. Since we are installing or configuring a huge network, so there the initial cost of installation can be very high. It requires time for administration. Okay, when we are talking about centralized administration, it also requires time for the administration. Then the failure of server. Suppose the administration is centralized, it is governed by or controlled by a server. What happens when that server is failed? Fine. So that is a problem. When the central node or the server has failed, the whole network is on a hold. It fails. Okay, so that is a disadvantage of network. Then the cable fault. Each of the nodes, since they are connected to each other via cables, if there is a fault in that cable, that also leads to failure of the network at that localized area. But when we talk about failure of server, the whole network shuts down. So these are certain disadvantage of the networks. Further, the networks can be classified depending upon their geographical area or their geographical span. Okay, for example, PAN, LAN, WAN, MAN and CAN. Let's see what they are. PAN stands for personalized or private area network. LAN is the local area network. WAN is wide area network. MAN, M-A-N, stands for metropolitan area network, and CAN stands for campus area networks. So these are all classified or categorized on their basis of geographical span. For example, the local area network. So a LAN is a network which is designed to operate over a small physical area such as an office building or a factory or say a group of buildings. So basically or generally we take some kilometers or up to a kilometer as the radius of that LAN. So LAN is easy to design and it is easy to troubleshoot. Exchange of information and sharing of resources becomes easy in case of local area network or LAN. In LAN, all machines are connected through a common type of transmission media. Preferably we go for the coaxial cables, but it can there can be twisted pair as well as optical fibers as well. But usually a single type of transmission media is used to connect the various nodes of a LAN. Different types of topologies such as star, tree, bus, ring or hybrid can be used here in case of LAN. Fine. It is usually a privately owned network. Then comes the wide area network. It is the largest among all the 5 types of networks that we had seen in the previous slides. WAN or wide area network is the most wide or having the largest geographical span amongst these 5 types. So when network spans over a large distance, when the computers are connected to each other at a widely separated locations, so a local area network or a LAN there is not sufficient. So we go for a wide area network and there a WAN is installed. So communication between different types of WAN is established using leased telephone lines or satellite links or likewise channels, and usually WANs are public as they can be privately owned as well, but generally they are public owned organizations. So it is cheaper and more efficient as compared to all the other types of networks that we saw. Then most WAN networks are used to transfer large blocks of data between users, hence the efficiency and hence the cost effectiveness of the WAN. Okay, then there is another type of network which is personal area network. So it is around the person. Okay, so it has the most limited area or most limited geographical span as compared to the other networks. So a personal area network is a computer network organized around an individual person. Okay, that person, his mobile or the desktop or the connected printer, fax, modems, etc. become the part of the personalized or private area network. So it generally consists of mobile computer, cell phone, personal digital assistant or PDAs. It can also be used for communication among personal devices which can communicate amongst themselves. The PANs can be constructed using wireless or wired transmission media. Okay, in case of wired we can go for coaxial cables. Then campus area network. So campus area network is similar to a LAN. When we defining that LAN with respect or from the perspective of a campus, then that LAN is typically known as campus area network. So the campus area network is made up of interconnection of LAN with a limited geographical area. Network equipment such as switches, routers and the transmission media, which can be optical fiber, twisted pair cables, coaxial cables, etc., are almost entirely owned by the campus owner. So similarly, as in the case of LAN, here in case of CAN also, the network is privately owned. Then if we have a wider span as compared to the LAN, we go for MAN. Generally a MAN or a metropolitan area network, from the very terminology we can say that it is in between, the geographical span is in between LAN and WAN, and it usually covers an entire city or a metropolitan area. Okay, it uses similar technology as LAN. So several LANs, they all together can connect with each other to make up a metropolitan area network or a MAN. It can be used as single network such as cable TV or connecting a number of LANs to a large network. So the resources, hardware or software, they can be shared among various users of that network. Okay, the resources can be shared between LAN to LAN as well as between the devices within a LAN. Fine. So this is the diagrams of the LAN, PAN, WAN, CAN and MAN. So the very basic is the PAN, which is around a person, hence the name personalized area network. So the various devices that can be used by a person, they can be connected with each other so as to configure a PAN or PAN. Okay, similarly, next we move on to the LAN. It is quite wider. Usually it encompasses a floor of a building or a whole building or one or two buildings, but usually a single organization, typically the privately owned organization, controls or has the control over the LAN. Okay, so here different entities or different computers can be connected using a single or a same type of transmission media. Then CAN. So CAN is also similar to LAN, but it is generally defined from the perspective of a campus. Okay. Then we go for MAN. Several LANs can be connected together, just as in a city, which constitute the MAN or the metropolitan area network, and the largest of all is the wide area network. Several LANs or several MANs or several CANs can connect to each other, as well as they can be connected to the network of networks, which is the internet, and they all can be constituted or said to be an example of wide area network or the WAN. So here is the comparison or the differences between LAN, WAN and MAN, which are the most important types of networks. As we can see, the ownership of network in case of LAN is private. In case of MAN, it can go for private or public, whereas in case of WAN, it is usually public, but it can be private as well. Geographical area for LAN is very small, MAN is moderate, WAN is very large. Design and maintenance of LAN is easy. MAN is, since it's wider, it's not easy. WAN is the widest of all, so it's not easy communication medium. Usually in LAN is coaxial cable, whereas in case of MAN we go for different types of transmission media, coaxial cable or optical fiber cable, etc. And in case of WAN it is PSTN or satellite link. Bandwidth is low in case of LAN, in MAN it's moderate, and in WAN it's high. And data rate in case of LAN is very high, MAN it's moderate, and WAN it's low. So thank you all of you.